මිහාර සෙක්‍රටේරියට අමාන තකෆුල්ගේ බේෆුන්න දන්නවාද පුරුසුතරවන්න Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Public Accounts Committee Subcommittee reviewing the bill, insurance bill in the Parliament. So, first of all, we would like to give you the opportunity to raise the concerns or areas where you think is important for us to consider before we finalize the bill. So I assume that you have a copy of the bill with you. All right, so I'll give the opportunity to Amana Takaful now.
Thank you very much for inviting us. In fact, when the draft was initially submitted to us some time back, and we have internally discussed, we also as a public listed company, we have certain governance practices. Although we have been having a lot of procedures and practices, this is actually a regulation. We always took it as a positive note for us as a company and for Takaful as an industry. We deliberated, a lot of discussions took place, and we thought the Act is something, a good initiative which we have been looking forward and we have been pursuing with MMA to come up with the Act which is going to strengthen the industry, and there will be a lot of discipline is going to come in. So accordingly, we also have been giving our points to MMA in few instances since 2017, I believe. So when the first draft came in, we went into all the areas in detail. There are few concerning clauses that we felt it will be good for us to revisit and to get an opportunity for us to express as to how this could be looked at it in a manner that could harmonize the Takaful industry as well as the insurance as a whole. And accordingly, we have given in writing, I believe, and subsequently I thank the committee for inviting all the rest of the insurance companies with us together to express our opinion. So we have already expressed it out as well. So if we are to go into detail one by one on the areas that we have highlighted, I believe Riaz, you can take it further, please.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Actually, we have submitted this our comments on 28 December 2020 in writing, and I'll just take you through the main areas that we have captured here. There are a few. Miga mi ane kuria dairo ahge kial dena komisara government miga faha kururu ekadatta ngedo mi gan furtama komka ganon tamfiz kuruma authority edi bigamba bharata ඒක මේ ඉන්නනේ අනේ වර මාද්දාකි මේ නම් තිනේ ශවියනීග මේ ඉන්නනේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් ಗೆ ಹಿದಮದ್ದೆ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಿತ ಅದು ಇನ್ಶೂರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಮೀಡಿಯರಿ ಇತ್ತ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ ಕೊ ಸುಪರ್ವೈಸ್ ಕುರ್ಮಕಿ මේ ඔතොරිටිගේ zimmaයක එහෙන් අරුම මේ ඉස්තහකව මේ අස්තුග ඉන්නනේ මිහිනෙන්නෝ මේක ඉන්නනේ අරුණු කියාල් දෙන යා මේක මේ ඉන්නනේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් ව්‍යාපාරිතන් අද ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් ඉන්ටර්මීඩියරි තවගේ තෙරෙන් ඔතොරිටින් කණාලා ඉන්ටර්මීඩියරි ත ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ ಕೊ ಸುಪರ್ವೈಸ್ ಕುರ್ಮಕಿ ඔතොරිටිගේ zimmaයක මේ කණාලා ඉන්නාති මස්සදයකි ආකි ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් ඉන්ටර්මීඩියරි අද ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සර්විස් ප්‍රොවයිඩර්ස් बाकी पाया कोई हैं खांडा आला है මේ रेगुलेट कुरुमा එහෙන් ඉන්නාති ගවර්න්මන්ට් මේ ඊවන එක සිලෙක්ටිව් බේසිස් ගෑ මේ නනේ එබැ ෆුල් රෙගියුලේට් කුරාන එහෙම ඒකන් ඉස්තහව කොල්ල ඒ එවන බාබු උනිකොප් අදෙත් දෙංගිනි දෙවන බාබු ඉංගත දෙවන බාබුගේ ෆස්වන මාද්දාග මනාකත්තත්ත ඒ එබෑග මේ ඉන්නනි මෙහරෝ එබ්බස් පරාතකු මිමාද්දාගේ බයන් කොෆා මනාකම කුරාකම ඔතොරිටිය ගබූල් කරවේනම එෆරාතගේ ව්‍යාපාරි හිංගා තන ගොස් නුවත එෆරාතුගේ ෆෙත්තකා මාලි හිසාබ්තකා රෙකෝඩ් තෝ ඔතොරිටිය ශේලම අංගා එතකති ගෙනුවාගෙන් එතකති බෙදුමුගේ පාර ඔතොරිටිය ලිපිගෙන් වේව දැන් මීග බුණාගොතුම් වීම අනෙන් එබ්බස් කාලා කෝටුගේ ඉන්ටර්වෙන්ෂන් නැති නිකන් කුරිය දාකාද උසූදක මේ මාන දේහවණි එහෙම ඒගේ බදල් ගස්තුව මේ කෝටු ඕඩර් එක වහකකි කහද රේඩ් කුර විදාන කහද උසූද කන්නේ ගරුනේ වෙන්නේ එහෙම අරුම ඉස්තහක කොහමෙන්දී එබ්බස් පරාතකු විමාද්දග බයන් කොප්පේවා මනාකුරා කම්හෙන් ඔතොරිටිය ගබුල් කුරවේ නම එෆරාතගේ ව්‍යාපාරි හිංගා තන ගොස් නුවත එෆරාතුගේ ෆෙත්තකා මාලි හිසාබ්තකා රෙකෝඩ් ඔතොරිටිය හුෂේලම අංගා එතකති ගෙනුවාගෙන් එතකති බෙදුමුගේ බාරු ඔතොරිටිය දිවිගෙන් වේවේ අදි එෆද අමලේ කුරාකම ගබූල් කුරවේ එෆරාතගේ ෆෙත්තකා මාලි හිසාබ්තකා රෙකෝඩ් ත බෙදුම නුවත එෆරාතේ ව්‍යාපාරි කුරාගේ බෙදුම එෆරාතගේ ව්‍යාපාරි හිංගා තන වඩම නුවත එෆරාතගේ ෆෙත්තකා මාලි හිසාබ්තකා රෙකෝඩ් ඔතොරිටිය ගෙනවම ඔතොරිටි මෝල්ඩිස් පොලිස් සර්විස් ගේ එදුමු පොලිස් සර්විසින් කෝටු අමරෙන් හොදම පහු එමරුග බයන් කුරේ ෆාවා එම්හා කන්තත්ත කුරුම වගුතු මෝල්ඩිස් පොලිස් සර්විස් ගේ හිතරිකම් ඔතොරිටිය ෆෝර් කොත් දෙමානේ මේ දෙවන බාබුගේ ෆස්වන මාද්දගේ ශවියන්
ෆස්වන මාද්දගේ ශවියන් මිහා ග්‍රීන් කොපි නිකියා කාෆ් ඕ බෙබලා විතර ෆස්වන මාද්ද
ඒ කුරීග
ඒ කාෆා ගේදා
authority gabul Rangal. Then first one about that room me Navara one Madda, Rausul Mad. Mega main and 30 million Rufia Rausul Made. Then Almang and him Almang Mega race cough for me in any Hagiga to Navara one Madda Ha Rausul Mad. Yes. Me back. 30 million get also mal me and alme air hushala venane vihimidian get also malakang mihar innani tihe ngeto ema kuddeka dihe kon tiriha illadam mima sankole me ane undagu wedana fahareka me bay kumfuni taka ngeto capital gotu ade no mihama ane unimpaired capital gotu ahige potun dakkan jene me capital
industry environment kuda ko research adavanu cheyadu kuda the authority environment ku negotiations ke adi ipan adi gota kurve gota kade evure eve on concerns me environment dei kokka dinawadu me adi
okay
you can move on.
then me first one babu 27 වන මාධ්‍යය facultative insurance
Hatasan mana?
facultative reinsurance
Capital reduce and kurve
Enggak itu kan hatasan mana?
hatasan mata
27.
27
ha
27 ha.
miharo
Facultative insurance.
24 में
24.
एक को बारे में शुरू हुई रियल
facultative reinsurance
Insurance एक हालत
एक उम्र
ada kurige tigama innani facultative reinsurance
मैं उनकी भी जाओ
24 हाँ
ठीक है
ये insurance
सबने बदल को फिर
सबके में बात करें
no adi tafaat weccha demmati dekki මීගම ඉන්නනි facultative reinsurance ade ei asa sabbis kurige reinsurance intizaamta ege dashun enani facultative reinsurances hatavis sabbisei reinsurance facultative reinsurance mibaga midido insurance kumfunjakon divehi rajyaga kura insurance muamalat nota em bay divehi rajyan beruga facultative sudun reinsure kurveni divehi rajyaga harakattiriwa ebbes insurance kumfunjakon e muamalata facultative reinsurance diben netumunne mehar miga mi almen emme bod concern kami wani divehi rajyake wara kodukoda market එහෙම මිතනුග අල්මෙන්න මේ දිමාව එම්බොඩු චෙලෙන්ජකි විසාද කල්ම ෆැකල්ටේටිව් කො එම් බෑකයක් කොද්දී ඒ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් දායර අල්ම හුරිහා ටර්ම්ස් බ රිවීල් කරන් ඒ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් වාගේ ඒ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් කුම්ෆුන්යාවස් දෙන් අන්න රිනිවල් එක එමිහුන් නම් මේතේ අසු අල්මෙන් අතුන් හොදුමුගේ බාර වර බොඩක් දිබෙන් එමිහුන් ඒ අම කොපොකත සුරිහා ව්‍යාපාරික සීක්‍රට් මෙහෙමෙන්නේ පොලිසි එහෙම ඒ අස්තු වරන් හොඳගෝ කම දැන් රාජ්‍ය ගණන් හැම ගත මේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සපෝට් ඕදාන අරුමුණ කන්නේ ගස්තු අනෙක් කුම්ෆුණීගේ කිහාවරෙක්ගේ මේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සපෝටෙන් වෙත්තෝ බේරුක ඒස් වර බොඩ ඉෂුව රේටඩ් එන්නෝ මිතා මෙහෙර ස්කාල ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් කුම්ෆුණී දා ඒ එම්ම හොඳගෝ එක්කන්තාව මෙන්න එහෙම ඒගොත ෆැකල්ටේටිව් සපෝට් හොදා මේ ලෝකදී වරන් හොඳගෝ ආන ආදි මේ ගොත මහද ගොත එහෙනම් මේක ඉතුරු කන්තතක ගෙනවිගෙන් අවුන්ට හීවේ රංගල කර විධානයෙන් එදාත
එතන මෙහරනේ එක සීගින් බාගේ එතන සම ඉනේම මෙහර පොයින්ට් එකේ තියෙන්නේ මේ රාජ්‍යයේ එක කුඩ මාකට් එකේ වීම ඒකේ බිස්නස් සීක්‍රට්ස් and පුඩි හයිට් එක කම්පියුටර්ස් විශ්යාවාති ඒ දෝෂ
ආද ඒ හුරිහා මවුදු මහත මේ ෂෙයා කරවෙන්නේ දත්ත ෂෙයා කොලෙම් දෙවන ෆාර පෝච් කරවෙන්නේ ඒ වේෆුන්න ඒ ක්ලයන්ට් ඒ හුරිහාකම ඉන්නේ රිවීල් වෙෆ එහෙම ඒ වස්තු මේ මාකට් පොඩවෙන් වාගොතේ
ඒක මෙහර අරමුණ ඉන්න මැන්ඩේටරි කො රාජ්‍යයේ ඉස්සර රාජ්‍ය බේර කුම්පිනක ඩයිරෙක්ට් කොස්ට් කරවේ ඒ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්
ඒ ඉන්ෂුර් නොකරවෙන්නේ දත්ත මිතාගස් මේ අසොරි ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකෙන් වාගොතේ අරුම මිදණි අරුම්බංගේ ඉන්න ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් ඉන්න ඇති ඉතුරු වාකේ සපෝට් එක මෙහොදනි බයක් වතු එහෙමම අසො රිවීල් කරන්නේ නැහැ හොරියා ටර්ම්ස් එහෙම වෙනවා ඒ මීගෙන් බොට ෂෙදෙන්ජක දිමාවන කමක
ඉකෝ අනේ මේ කොම්බෝතල තෝෂා
ඉන්නනේ.
Chairman, with your permission, can I
Yeah.
elaborate a bit on this? Thank you. I'm getting you straight. Okay. When it comes to reinsurance requirements for any insurance company, there are two elements are there. One is categorized under the treaty. Every insurance companies will have that treaty arrangement, and the second one is the facultative. So I will not go into so much of technical areas there. Treaty is something that within the insurance company's capacity, the reinsurers will give that authority with a premium. Any amount within the certain amount, that is a sum covered amount. For example, let's take as a property worth of 10 million. Within the treaty capacity, maybe with any risks which is falling within that 5 million can be underwritten. The balance 5 million to ensure that the entire sum covered is covered, this has to be placed with the facultative reinsurance companies. On case by case basis, the requirements have to be sent, and the confirmation will come to the insurance companies. Now, as a standard practice, why the facultative insurance is required is the insurance companies do not have the capacity in the event of a total loss to settle to the participant concerned. So that's the reason the insurance companies will pay a premium to the reinsurance companies. In the event of a loss, the amount is paid back, and that's how the insurance is covering its risk with the other reinsurance companies. Now, it is important to deal with a rated reinsurance company, which is that they will have to have the minimum standard and poor, of which one of the ratings where they have the ability in the event of a claim to settle. Now, an encouragement in this manner is appreciated. We have spoken to MMA at the initial stage, provided there is a mechanism. Now, the regulation, if it states that freely the insurance companies are going to deal with each other, there are a lot of practical difficulties are there. Firstly, when there is an arrangement to ensure that every company is approached, it has to go through a body like MMA. So MMA will have to facilitate, there are so many properties are there, right, involved. This one company will have number of requirements one day. So that has to be put through MMA. MMA has to facilitate, or somebody has to facilitate that particular risk is covered by every company. And with that arrangement only, when we have secured for that balance 5 million, we have secured say 3 million, the 2 million we can place it outside. So in terms of efficiency, there are going to be some practical difficulties. Nextly, as Riaz mentioned, when we are dealing with different insurance companies, now our confidential information about the customer is going to be shared. There is no guarantee that information is going to be within that company the following year also. Now there is a possibility that particular business can be poached directly by that particular company by offering certain lower rates. So eventually, if you don't have the right monitoring mechanism, and that is also going to be subject to a lot of delays when we are going through MMA, for example, in this instance, there will be more delays coming in for them to respond to the inquiry, and as a result, the customer's cover will not be able to be affected. So issues are there in terms of the business is getting actually poached by the competitors. Number two is not having their capacity rated, not like a rated reinsurance company, and the delays and procedures. But if there's a proper mechanism laid down, it is something that we can really look at it. But at the moment, the draft is not really touching in the details as to how the mechanism should be formulated. So some clarity is lacking on that. If we go on this basis, it will be detrimental for the insurance industry. That's our view.
Can you elaborate on what sort of mechanism that you are talking about?
Okay, now generally the way it is going through, for every insurance company is to get the facultative arrangement outside. It is perfectly working very well for all the insurance companies. Now, the motive behind this is to retain the risk within the country, and probably, I think the MMA's argument could be here, where the reinsurance premium, without remitting it overseas, it can be retained within. But in terms of capacity, the treaty capacity is going to be very, very small. So even if this mechanism comes in, the amount that is collected by the insurance companies, partly it is retained, but it is going to be still paid out. So if you take the neighboring countries, there's no mechanism as this way, right? So the risk doesn't have to be retained here because we are too small and we are still in the infant stage. So when we come to certain stages, certain maturity stage, if it comes, definitely we can propose something. But we feel it is, I mean, like, we are looking at an industry which is having about 900 million premium for annually. Such kind of an arrangement will not be quite viable. It will have so much of different implications. So maybe after some time when the act is implemented, a further regulation can come to support that.
Now, how is it in Sri Lanka? If you talk about facultative.
Okay, in Sri Lanka, it is actually an arrangement. The insurance companies don't share as a facultative arrangement. There's something called co-insurance. Co-insurance is when you have a capacity issue, you talk to other company, you partly deal with them, you give on understanding basis. So here,
that is still between the two insurance companies.
Between the two insurance
Not
companies.
with the authority.
Not with the authority. It will be between the two insurance companies. So here too, presently it is happening. Number of companies are sharing the risk accordingly, but there is no mandatory requirement as such. Now sometimes you may have taken an insurance business from a company to you this time because maybe your terms are good, your customer is having more confidence. So when you want to share the risk, you would want to share it back with the party who has already lost. It doesn't make sense. You can share it with the rest. But when there is a mandatory requirement, again that will go back to the same party. It's going to create a lot of confusions. And then at that point in time, like when the customer has already made up his mind to continue with new company, the other company can still go forward and confuse the customer further. So in Sri Lanka, the co-insurance is very much promoted, so as in Maldives. I think the co-insurance is the way forward. That's on understanding basis, the risk can be spreaded among the insurance companies. There's also another one more area in Sri Lanka. They're looking at Sri Lanka, India, and so as the other countries. It is called insurance risk pool system. Now we have been advocating the authorities to look at it, how we could formulate.
How does the pool system is work in Sri Lanka?
Okay, how it works? Yeah, how it works in Sri Lanka is initially
statutory setup.
That's right. Okay, so it was actually the blessing came from the government, and it was initially monitored through the Sri Lankan Insurance Board. Now, say for example, let's take every fire policy here. So we had to come up with that in Sri Lanka long ago because of the war. There were so many catastrophes happening, like because of the terrorism issues, there have been a lot of properties getting damaged. So insurance companies were losing the ability to settle the claims because claims were very high. The reinsurers were also not really supporting. So the country realized it is important for them to look at the way forward. So every policy which is sold, 30% of the premium is set aside to the pool. So the pool starts to grow. So the pool will also have a retro reinsurance sessions with the other party also. So supposingly you have that your claim is 100, so $100 claim. The 30% of the claim will be coming from the pool internally. The balance 70% with your other reinsurance arrangements from the overseas. So when it became mandatory, the pool began to grow further. And then their capacity became bigger. And eventually, these pools will be automatically converted as a national reinsurance companies. This is how exactly it happened in Nepal, in India, in Oman, and there are a lot of success stories are there all over the world. So we may be quite early to look at visualizing ourselves to have a national reinsurance company, but for everything there has to be an initial step. So this is something, it will be viable for us to really look at it, but of course it has to be administered properly through MMA, and it has to be approved with the policymaker side.
So still the country will retain 30% of the premium within the country with this sort of mechanism, right?
That's right.
Or else most of it will go to the reinsurers.
Reinsurers as well, that's right. So since this is something that every player here, registered player, is going to contribute towards developing something in the long run, so which is going to transpire as a reinsurance company in the long run. Now, what?
Can you suggest some of the models that have worked? I mean, like Nepal and.
Okay, it has happened in firstly Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Sri Lanka we call it as NITF, National Insurance Trust Fund. Trust Fund. Okay.
Okay.
So that's how it started way long ago. Now the capacity there, it's not only 30%. Even if you have more to reinsure, you can still approach. Yes. So that's actually a very successful model. GIC in India, that is how it formed. It started as a pool. It started under some kind of a special arrangement, but today it's a reinsurance company, Nepal and so on. So I really feel that we have got this insurance regulation back in 1994. The industry is growing bigger. We also have to have vision in terms of bringing up an arrangement where the industry should grow further. So
who controls this pool? I mean, is it the government or how does it operate?
it's all what we suggest is if it is to be done, it has to be coming under special arrangement through Finance Ministry.
And
MMA also will have a say on that, but there'll be few administrators, and it's going to work as an entity, right? Separately, but eventually it will grow bigger, because insurance companies also showing the growth year on year. A lot of mandatory covers have come. So if every cover that we are issuing, if the amount goes in, automatically it will benefit the country also in the long run. Even the excess funds, it can be utilized for various other economic activities as well.
Yeah, I mean, historically, it creates a lot of excess fund. Yeah, but
Yes, year on year it will increase
it
actually.
never loses the money, right?
It doesn't, right? Because fortunately, like if you look at Maldives, we are not prone for catastrophic disasters here, right? So there may be some claims happening, definitely. So in that pool also will contribute, but pool is not taking the entire risk. Pool is going to take 30%, 25%. Accordingly, we can set aside. So if you are not in a position to look at all the class of business, but at least we can look at certain class of business. Maybe only fire we can start with. Now, in the recent past, with these ecological system changes, we also have been seeing a lot of claims happening in the resort sector, and these exposure is quite high. So it is always good to look at in the long run.
Yeah.
So when it comes to sharing the risk, I think this is the most viable one. In fact, I think the governor also must have mentioned in the last session, I'm not sure, but then he always acknowledges, but we have been talking about it for a long time. We strongly believe with the committee, if we can advocate, maybe this is the right time for us to really look at how the insurance industry can grow much more bigger in the long run. So certain foundations have to be laid at this stage, we feel.
And some of the concerns from the industry was that they feel that when you only allow for the price of the premium to provide for faculty reinsurances, they feel that it should have more like quality, not only the price, so that the insurer company will have more option to, or the insurer will have more option to decide, not only based on the price, whether it's the quality of the package that you get. So we discussed that yesterday with the industry as well, so with the tourism industry. So I think we could come up here with a more reasonable, as you said, a mechanism where it's more like more subjective than I don't know, which is more practical for the operation. So I would very much like to hear or see in writing if you have a suggestion on the type of mechanism that could be more practical for the industry.
We will be more than happy to provide that.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you think it's reasonable to write a mechanism in the
Or it should go to the regulation.
I think it can go to the regulation as well, right? Because bringing this to an act, it might be it's so much of details are there. So maybe it could encourage the authorities to promote something in this nature.
Yeah.
I support Mr. Chairman with regard to the concerns that you mentioned that about the other insurance companies' opinion. The quality of risk, for example. Now, we as a company, we may have certain principles and guidelines and certain set premium. This is what we are underwriting. Now, if, sorry. So, we as an insurance company will have certain practices. These are the type of risks that we'll be accepting to the in our books, because we are backed by rated reinsurance company. There are certain do's and don'ts are there. I mean, there's some certain guidelines.
So it could address to the issue that to the concern that you raised about the ratings and everything, right? When you consider the quality.
Absolutely, right? So that's what I'm driving here also. Maybe another company, it will not have that stringent approach. They are probably not backed by the rated reinsurance company. Their premium can be way too low. Maybe a lot of exclusions are there. But when it comes to a situation like this, we are compelled to take that particular share also into our books.
Yeah, because it's a more competitive price, right?
So if the regulation mandates that risk is going to come to us, now we will have a contradiction with our reinsurers, because these are the risks that it is probably not encouraged for us to undertake. But now with the regulation, we are compelled to take that to our books also. So in the event of a claim, if this doesn't go according to the reinsurance contracts, that could be another detrimental effect.
Right. So if we are done with this, we can move on.
I have one question. When you negotiate with the facultative
Reinsurers,
what are the confidential information you usually share with the reinsurer?
Okay. Initially, at the time of giving the information, they will ask for the history, they will ask for the details of the property concern. If it is a resort, for example, property concern, and we probably have to give all these information and the existing insurance companies' details also. Because reinsurance companies, they are well connected. Definitely, even when the moment that we mention the property concern, that it is all, they will know who is sharing what percentage and so on. So initially, it is just that based on the preferred rates and certain excesses and conditions they will put down, and if it matches according to our requirements, the contract is established. Now sometimes we will probably ask for 30% capacity, they will give only 10% because their preference is only 10% with the rate that we are providing here, or maybe certain conditions are not favorable. Now that misconception is unfortunately there for Maldives risk, because it's somehow Maldives is perceived as a nation which water level is rising. It's always, I mean, like, mercifully we did not have anything after tsunami, but still in the eyes of reinsurers, it's always they look at there are a lot of risk involved with regard to natural disasters. So the preference is always low towards the rated reinsurance companies, unless there's a huge amount of rate is charged. So coming back to your question, initially this is a set of information that we will be passing. Subsequently, they will ask to provide a survey report. Now we at the time of issuing the cover, we can't get the survey report because we have not established the contract with the customer concerned. So customer will not allow outsider to go and do the inspection. But once we effect the cover, once the cover is binding, customer will always understand the requirement. They will allow us to do an inspection. So either we do it with our own technical expertise or individuals. If not, we need to get outsiders as proposed by the reinsurers. So we get the valuation done, or at least a preliminary inspection report. So those are the only conditions. Based on that, the reinsurance companies, if they feel that certain actions may have to be taken, maybe certain rectifications are proposed, that has to be adhered by the client. Does it answer your question?
Question over. Initially, I'm just allowing them to raise the concerned areas, so later on we can. Oh, now we will reconsider, and suggest the mechanism with our detail content from what they always understand with the මේ අති insurance company එකේ කොතුම් ඉස්පා කරන කාර්යක්‍රම insure උරාෆරාත්තු සොඩමිකාරී මේ concern raise coffee as facultative insurance का दार हमें इकड़ बंदी की price भी मां यार अगर नोड़े positive सेंटर के ये mechanism पूरी हमारे को ये
එහෙනම් අලුත්ම ගස්ස ඒක ප්‍රොපෝස් කරි ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් කම්පැනි එකක් දිවේ
I'm sorry.
condition දුදුගේ බත කොම්මේ සිටි කරන condition එක විඳනි for a reason ඒ නමස් ඒ තංකොල් practical කර then suggest because we could add some more to make sure that we develop some kind of work for the consider
එහෙම අරුණ මේ අනේ 27 මාද්දා මෙහාරෝ ඒ අරුණ මේ වාහක දක්කම් ගන්නා මාද්දා වෙහෙගොතම අරුණ එහෙමනේ දැන් තීන්ද අති තියන් ඉස්තාවත ගන්නාන කන්නේ අතිවස් ඉදෙක්කි වාහකයා කි එහෙම අරුණ කුරිය ජෙහිදානානේ කාසිගත මේ දෙන්වබ්බය හවන බාබුගේ 33 වන මාද්දා liquidated damages तेत्तीस वण माद आद हवण बाबू 31 මේ නොගත me liquidated damages මේක අස්තු මේකම වාගතකි එකි ක්ලේම් මේ එකි තම තෆාතු එකි ක්ලේම් එක තම මිසාලක බඩති ක්ලේම් තන් එබවරේ මිසාලක රිසෝට් එක රෝවි ඒ ක්ලේම් හගිගතු ඒ ලයබිලිටි එස්ටැබ්ලිෂ් කරන දක්කන් ජෙහෙනතෝ නු ජෙහෙනතෝ එස්ටැබ්ලිෂ් කරන නගා වගුතු තෆාතු එහෙම මේ ගානේ ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් වගුතු තකන් හදාපේ තකන උදගුවාන එකමක ලයබිලිටි එස්ටැබ්ලිෂ් කරුම ෆහු කණ්ඩේලෙන මෙන්න මුද්දත් එක තරගෙන මේ ලස්වගෙන ඒක මානේ කි ඒරෝ එන්දි රිකොග්නයිස් කොප්පේ මේ දක්කන් ජෙහෙච්චප්ප ඒ හිසාබුම් පෙෂිගේ ඒරෝ නගලවා ඒගොත්තන් අසුක බද්දෙක් වෙන විදියා මේ අනේ අස්තු මේක මක්සද හස්මාන් කන්නක දෙෆරාතම්ස් ඒ ඉස්සර කාදේ සෑකද හේතු සෑකද ඇක්සිඩන්ට් එක ඒ අස්තු හැම හැද්දුස්තර දෙන්නේ ෆාසා ඒ වර ෆසේ කම කගිගතු ඒක හුරියා මේ අනේ හල්දු කුර්මගේ සිෆන් ෆුදුහුම් මෙදෙන් රිපෝර්ට් බේස් කොල්මන් තින් කොටේෂන් ගෙන්නා නේ ගුණනේ හැම හැද්දුස්තර එක ප්‍රොසෙස් නිමම ෆාසා එකම මිසාලක ෆයර් ඉන්සිඩන්ට් මේ තමයි ජීදියා ස්කූල් මේ නම උගෙන් ෆයර් ඉන්සිඩන්ට් කාල ඒ වර බොඩු ඉන්සිඩන්ට් එකහල ඉන්සිඩන්ට් එක මේ අනේ ලයබිලිටි එස්ටැබ්ලිෂ් කරනකම වර තෆාතු කන්තතක ස්කෝරෙන් ජීදාන් තෆාතු ගොත මේ හුඟන ස්කීම් සල්ම සර්විස් කරෙන් ජීදාන් මේක අර
I understand me around ge මීග අවුඩ බේනුමනේ අසු මිසක ලිමිටු මි කුරani එක්කමකි බය එක්කහද හාදත්තව දෙමෙති විදාළුවෙන් ෆයර් නුනේ මිකාකම් කමුගේ ගොතෙන් නුනි මි මාගිනු මිසක ගොතෙන් නිම්මමකි අනේ commes gotaka wahakeki whether you accept the claim or noni reject the claim ekan kuran muddate onna jene ege form misa ko ke den court process noni ya den eda legal process nimiken den je nudin je den ko e tividalwa hen liability establish kurim ekura muddatukum ferge onna jene gote ane mi pay kurana duwe e duwa pay no kofia liquidated damages de genu tonna adi e liability establish kurantano ta nunto insurance company discretion gonna come they will have their own investigators and valuers and blah 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 so once a complete kurane database onna jene misaka a process about by confident hoga aharaka vuri digoen us a reasonable wanjene hema eyan asdu boda address kore me armi deba wahi kolla hondu men nero kore vidane ekkamaki liability recognize kurum nuniya nukurum eyaves onna jene muddate den adekkamakam yoti recognize kurum affaho Kasa dakkam je mudda. Avis muddate diva a period no coffee then we can talk about liquidity data damages.
මේ ගලවන්න අද එච්චර දන්නවා දැන්. මේ අන අස්තු මේ liability establish කරමසේ ඔබේනම් මේ बाकी procedure follow කරා. ඒකේ ඔබේනම් එක insured ගේ එපාරදෝ. පාර්ෆා document එක ඇචරන demand කරන්නේ එච්චිත හොදන්න බෙදේ. එහෙම ඒක හකිගතුක fair process මේ අරුණක නැහැ කිනක බේරතන් තාගෙන අරුණෙන් සවර difference දෙමින් මේක liquidated damages කිහිනෙත්තෝ එමිහුන් establish කොප්පා හුන්නනි ඒගොතන් මේ එවස් කාහ තිබේ ෆොන් එවස් එච්ච කොන් reference නංගවෑගෙන් කොප්පා තියා මරුණ වරනවල එහෙම අරුණ හිවනි එම්එම් ඒක කිහිනෙත්තොක්කෝ ඒනොන් ඒ mechanism අරුණ understand වෙන් කියන්නේ දැත්තෝ මිකන් කොරවෑනේ නොකොරවෑනේ yes වගුතු දෙත්ත
අවුරුඩන් ඊවනි මීග අවුරුඩුමෙන් විශ්නජෙන් දෙම්මෙන්ස රියාස්ති විදාළුවි ගොත එකොළොම් මුවාමදයාත respond kuran jihe mikon ane beenuwa baar mawdumaattan hure misa police report anen icheko echisse sound hiwena su practical minganutuke hunnane misadaka claim egga mi communication na dang ede muddettaka michissa badafa e tikolom mi har migai gawadegga hunnenje huriha details e bilakunu gene ko aruna biluka bunividane miweni kankama react koffa muddate kadala migota ane kurevidane එහෙම ඒකතවන ඒක එයන් අස්ලු තිබෙන ඇඩ්‍රස් කරවහරේ ඒ ක්‍රියාය කුරංජේ කංකම බලාර කංකම කොබෑක කාවණ මෙන්න කමි ඉග්නෝ එන්න කරේ නේද තිබේ ෆොණගේ අම ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් කම්පැනි කහග්ගක එක්ගොත හම අවණෙන් ඒව බදන්ජේ ඉන්ෂුර කුරා ෆරාතුගෙස් අනේ ඉන්වෝල්ව් රිස්ක් එමිහුන්ගෙස් අනේ මි කන්සර්න්ස් එහෙම අවණේ we could come to a mi අනේ මි හම මෙතෙරේගේ හල්ලක ආදී දැන් so ඒගොතන් එබ හංග කුරි ගන්නවා
එහෙම අල්ම තිගොත මස්සදෑන මෙහර කොම්ගොස් මේක කඩාලා මෙති මේ වකි උසූල කඩාලා ගොත ගවෑද දෙත එකුලවලා ගොත
MMA suggest to put they will sit with all the insurance companies and they will agree on how the mechanism and we would
there will be a separate regulation
Just to clarify one matter, I think it's in one way we support this.
Yeah.
Because insurance companies have to be fair in terms of treating their customers and they should not be taking undue delays and where the customer is financially already having the impact. There are many claims which are very straightforward when it comes to certain property claims, motor claims, vessel claims. There are also certain incidences which are very complicated. This will involve foreign loss adjusters to come for them to finish the investigations. A lot of documents will be pending from the client concerned and its clarification will not be required. Maybe another set of new surveys have to come. So it all depending on the complication involved. So the insurance companies have to take that reasonable time to process that entire information to establish the liability. We always prefer also in such a manner the moment the liability is established and we send out the discharge order to the client, we have something called subrogation. Once the insurance company settle the claim, any arising liability, the client doesn't have to face it, it's all passed on to the insurance company. So once that subrogation and discharge voucher is signed, the insurance company has to honor the claim within that stipulated time work. So that is something that we encourage. Maybe within whatever agreeable time, we will always support that. Because insurance company, say it's a huge amount of claim, maybe say $20 million insurance company has to settle. So insurance company cannot delay it further. Once the liability is established, they can't say that we are waiting for the reinsurance companies to remit the money. That is not the client's concern here. So once it is done, that reasonable time period, if it can be mentioned, the insurance companies have to settle in full, unless otherwise there is an understanding with the client. Maybe the client is giving certain leniencies. Okay, out of this 20 million, you settle 10 million now, maybe another 10 million in 2 months' time or whatsoever. That is on the understanding in writing. But I think once the liability is established, Mr. Chairman, it will be good for us to set aside that particular time as understood by the rest of the insurance industry players and MMA.
I mean, I understand your point, but I think the purpose of this clause is to make sure that the time taken to establish the liability is being addressed. So to do that, I think you could put into this the type of claims that they should, while they're doing the regulation, they should consider the type of the claims, and upon those things they should give the time frame to establish the liability. But we have to consider this. I think some customers when they have an incident and they have lost part of their operation and they have been suffering with the loss, and they have to wait like years or months to establish a claim, then it's a big loss for the customer as well. I mean, maybe some of them could never recover from the. But I think our purpose is that we address this in a reasonable manner. So
Yes.
you can propose us the sort of things that should be considered in terms of establishing the time period to establish the liability. I mean, it could be not limited just to a single type of claim. It could be limited to based on the size and the type of claims, and upon those, based on those things, the regulation should come up with the time frame. Maybe like Riyadh suggested, if it is a motorcycle incident, so you could give us time frame of maybe 2 months or yes, it's 7 days. And if it is a vessel, vessels, so there are types and size of vessels. Maybe if it is a luxury safari boat, the claim could be as high as to $10-15 million. So I think we could in a way address this to address the size of claim and the type of claim, and then to establish a time frame based on those sizes and type of claim. I think something like this should help to address this.
I think that's a very good idea as well, because MMA has been gathering all the information from the insurance companies. They very well know the number of claims settled, the duration taken, and so on. So as an authority, they will be more reasonable to understand and the gravity of the situation here. So as I understand, if it is going to be something that we are putting it further to the authority to come up with that regulation, we will definitely support that.
Yeah, that's how it is. That is how it's been proposed.
Okay, but there's only one.
But also not mandatory.
Oh, okay, is it the way, right? There's only one challenge that MMA also will face here. We can come up with the type, we can come up with the sum covered, nature, we can come up with. What we will be having difficulty is, the difficulty will be in terms of the type of the incident. That is something that's very difficult to quantify. Certain incidents are going to be very straightforward. It can be very high sum covered, but it's a straightforward claim. But some are really very complicated. So MMA has to take that reasonable grounds.
Said during the information sessions that they would come up with a regular, each and every policy there will be a time frame set, and so it will be very detailed regulation. So, and they said that they will discuss with the industry before they finalize the regulation. So, but if you want to add any line here in order to address this time frame issue, or for them to consider, you could suggest us those things. No?
I think it is.
Okay. Examples.
I think it is more. I mean, the regulation has to be very much in detail.
Yeah.
So even if we put something here, it may not be, you know,
Exactly. But
it may not be reasonable also.
අවුරුවෙන්න මේ දෙවිදානේ උද්දත කඩාලා අනේ මේ අනේ type of incident size of the claim රියාය පුරම් වාඩේ ඒක හද ගොත කවුඩ වෙන්න ලෙවිදාන
මේක ස්මිතේ මුද්දත කඩේ දාන්නේ කඩාලා වානේ කියලා නැත්නම්
අවුරුවෙන්න ලෙවිදාන මේ මුද්දත කඩාලා වාර අනේ මේ type of claim size of claim ඒකම්කම රියාය පුරම් වාඩේ ඉතින් ඒරුන්ද end of the day එක ගන්නේ බෑ හුන්නානේ address කරේ.
Okay,
Anyway,
I would like to clarify, just pardon my ignorance in this. Now, MMA as an authority, now they also have been, initially they were giving powers to regulate the banks. Now the power has been given to regulate the insurance companies as well directly. So the regulations can be drafted directly by the MMA as an authority and directly implemented, or they send it as a circular for implementation, or does that also have to come back to the Majlis committee? How
They will implement.
Okay.
But within the scope of the law.
No, okay,
So we could define the scope as much as we want in that.
Okay, thank you.
එහෙම අවුරුදු මේ අනේ කොමිටිය වඩ ඉස්සාකුර මෞදමතට්ටක ආමනට්ටක ෆුල්ගේ බේහුණ වරපඩ මරහබ ಶುಕೂರ್ ದಂಡ එහෙම අවුරුදු මීටිಂಗ್ ಮಂಡೇ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಕುರಾಣ ಅವಡು ಮಿಸಾಬು ಮೇದೆ ಬದಲು ನಿಮ್ಮ ವರಬಡ ಶುಕ್ರಿಯಾ.